Welcome everybody, this is our seasons orientation guide. This will in no way be to scale, but it will make an important point, and it's the point of why the Earth even has seasons. So we know that the Earth goes around the sun in a year and that we have 4 seasons during that time. We also know that we have the orbital plane as this imaginary line that goes through the sun and all the equators of the planets and the like. And so this is trying to depict that. So here is the orbital plane right here, and here's the Earth. Now, if the Earth was situated to the orbital plane like you're seeing, we would never have seasons because the way the Earth faces the sun would never ever change. And the reason is because in this case, we're saying that the Earth's axis is exactly a 90-degree angle to the orbital plane. And this is not the case. If it was the case, we would have no seasons because the way the sun hits the Earth would never change. Instead, though, the axis of the Earth is tilted relative to the orbital plane, and it's tilted at a 23.5 degree angle. And this makes it so when we go around the sun, that the way the sunlight hits the Earth does change, and those changes are why we have the seasons that we experience. So this would be our first day of summer, and I want you to pay special attention to the axis line here because it's pointing towards the sun. So we have the northern hemisphere pointed more towards the sun than the summer hemisphere, which of course makes the light hit gnomons on our hemisphere a little differently. If we go 6 months, the sun has gone halfway around, or the Earth rather has gone halfway around the sun. However, you'll notice right here it says this is an incorrect drawing because notice that the axis of the Earth, just like before, is still pointing at the sun, and the northern hemisphere is still tilted toward the sun. Again, if this is the way the Earth went around the sun, we would not experience any seasons, even with the tilt of the axis, because the way light from the sun hits the Earth would never ever change. And so this can't be a true drawing. A true representation looks like the following. Now notice that the tilt of the Earth when we had it over here in summer was going from our right to our left, and it is still doing that. And now that it's still doing that, you'll notice that the northern hemisphere, or the upper part of the Earth, is no longer facing more towards the sun. This axis stays consistently pointed in the same direction in space all year long. And that makes the sunlight strike the Earth very differently every season. And that's why we have seasons. So this is a correct picture of how sunlight hits the Earth during our winter. This would be incorrect. So there's correct. Now, the hardest one to depict of all the positions is our equinoxes in spring and fall. We know when we're over here in the summertime, the northern hemisphere is pointed more towards the sun than the southern hemisphere is. We just saw when we're over here in the winter, the southern hemisphere is more pointed toward the sun than the northern hemisphere. Well, this is very hard to show in this kind of a format, but during the equinoxes or spring and fall, neither hemisphere is pointed more toward the sun. They are equal, which it makes sense. If it's more to the northern hemisphere here and more to the southern hemisphere here, there's got to be a point in between where they're equally pointed toward it, and that is our equinoxes. So this is a pretty hard one to depict. We'll go over a number of different models in class that are going to be really important to pay attention to, but the reason we have seasons is because the Earth is tilted and because the axis of that tilt stays oriented to the same spot in space all the time. And that ultimately makes light hit our sun differently, or the light from the sun hit our Earth differently. Now, to understand how it hits differently, then you need to watch another movie which will show you the difference in how light strikes the Earth during the summer versus the winter, and you can find that on my website as well. So, hope you enjoyed the seasons orientation.